Good evening, councillors. Hope all is well. The date is Monday, the 27th of July 2020. Thank you all for attending. I want to say a big welcome back to Councillor McKinley as well. Apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillors Doherty, Mullen, John Sayers and Yvonne Sayers.
And also Councillor June Bates. Number 2, are there any declarations of interest?
No.
Don't appear to be so, Chair.
No.
Number 3, public participation. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, public participation will be dealt with via the submission of comments or questions to the council prior to the meeting commencing. Anyone wishing to submit a comment or a question to the council must do so by 5 p.m. Friday, the 24th of July 2020.
None were received, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 4. To confirm the minutes of full council held the 22nd of June 2020. Pages 1 to 8.
Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Agreed.
Lovely, thank you.
Item number 5. Land east of Maghull. Consultation on the proposed elements of the construction environmental management plan for the planning application. Members are asked to consider the council's response to the consultation, pages 9 to 20.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Attached to the papers, the letter that has been drafted by our planning consultants. So if you can say welcome to Philippa and Edward Landor, who join us tonight.
No.
In case you have any questions or anything that you'd like clarification on with regards to that letter or about the construction and environmental management plan that Persimmon and Countryside are putting forward for our comments. I think it's fair to say that the council's position since November of last year has always been to argue for a Hall Road. It was the reason why one of the reasons why the additional spurs were put in on Junction 1. So it was appropriate, therefore, for the council to go out and actively lobby for option 6, as it turned out to be in that SEMP. So I have to say as well, we've also given members of the public the opportunity to contact us if they weren't able to get through. At White Peak Planning on the virtual consultation, because it wasn't easy, and we do have a spreadsheet of concerned residents, together with some have made comments, some haven't, and we're going to put that in together with our response to the consultation. Over to you, Chair, if anybody wants to speak. Or maybe then if we hand over to Philippa and Edward to talk us through the consultation response.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. I think in our letter where we started the position from what did Sefton Council's Planning Committee ask of the applicants in the consultation process. And what they asked them to do was to provide a full construction environmental management plan and to clarify the position regarding the Spine Road. What they've done, of course, is they've only consulted on options for the whole route from the site. So they haven't clarified the position regarding the Spine Road. You've got 6 options. I think to summarise those, options 1 and 2 are really a variation of routes going towards Melling. So turning left out of the site, turning left and going through Melling by 2 alternative routes, and I'm sure you know those routes. Yeah. Options 3, 4 and 5 are all through Maghull, and option 6 is through the site. The way we see it is that routes 3, 4 and 5 will clearly impact in terms of, will have the maximum impact on the most on more people, because that is that is a concentration of population. So 3, 4 and 5 are going to have significant impacts if the whole route goes through Maghull. Options 1 and 2 obviously have less impact on numbers of people, but the routes are not suitable. The roads are too narrow. So there is the conundrum. What we point out is, by saying that option 6 is not deliverable, what it really means is they haven't reached a commercial negotiation. It's all a matter of commercial negotiation. They don't want to go that way because presumably there's a cost. And the other signal it sends is, if you can't put the road through the site because the owners won't agree, how are you going to provide the infrastructure for the flood relief? The cat's out the bag. And the other thing I think you should focus on with the all of the images, all of the routes show the access into the site directly opposite the school. Well, why? Why is it not going in at the point where the spine rose is intended? So I think those are issues for you to decide. And the other issue, I think, is we've taken the sort of absolute position. This is what we think. Option 6 for us, it has minimum impact on the community. As Angela says, takes advantage of the slip road and the infrastructure and the investment in that. It minimises impacts on Maghull and Melling. That should be the route which is chosen. On the other hand, I think what you might have to consider, given or something you may want to consider from a political perspective, if route 6 is ruled out, do you want to suggest that one of the other 5 might be acceptable?
As in, one of the other 5 might be the least bad out of a bad bunch.
So I think that sort of summarises what the position we came to. And hence we sort of summarised really the bullets, I think, at the beginning of the letter, 1 to 9 at the front.
Councillor Carlson has indicated he'd like to speak.
Thank you, Angela. Philippa, thank you very much. It's a very comprehensive report. I think you've highlighted some of the road widths would be unsafe. And I'm sure the road traffic people at Sefton Council haven't been consulted on this. I imagine it's gone straight to planning. So I think that's really important, that the actual width of the road isn't compatible with the size of the wagons you want to drive down there. I think you picked up on there's no footpaths on some of the roads.
Yeah.
There would be a safety issue, and the safety issues with driving juggernauts down a bloody school country lane, obviously that's not acceptable. I thought though that the instruction from Sefton Council was that the two of them had to submit this construction environmental management plan because it was inextricably linked.
Yeah.
And, isn't it now flawed that they haven't done it together?
Yes, I'd say so, yes.
So really, they haven't done what they were instructed to do by Sefton Council?
No, they haven't. I mean, I think that was your point there is exactly our position. We started with what was the minute, what did the minutes say, and have they done it? And I would say they haven't done it for the reasons you say. There was supposed to be a CMP for the whole site. We're all intelligent people, aren't we? Surely we can see the whole of the management plan. We don't need to be just shown routes. That would be my point. And yes, it would be. It's supposed to be for the whole site, because this is a very large site, and this obviously the impacts from the construction process are not going to be for a few months. They're going to go on for a number of years. So the route that is chosen is very important for the community as a whole, and the impact it's going to have, and it's right opposite the schools. That's how they're showing it at the moment.
Okay, that was my question anyway. I think you've answered it.
No, I totally agree with you.
I don't think this is worth the paper it's written on, or the effort he's put into it. I think it's absolutely 100% flawed.
Councillor Ken Hughes.
Philippa, I think it's a very comprehensive report, but I'm just wondering, is there a weight restriction on the small bridge on Poverty Lane, which will stop wagons actually going up Poverty Lane?
That's a good question.
It's a good question. I don't know, to be honest. Is the honest answer. We can have a look.
It's almost a single track bridge when you go across it, you know.
It might be width because it's not that wide at all, is it?
No, but it's the weight restriction. If you get a wagon with 18 ton of stone on or whatever, plus the weight of the wagon, you know, you're talking 25 ton, and I'm sure that railway bridge, I'm no expert, wouldn't take that weight.
The exhibition that they produced, they carried out their own assessment of each of the routes, and the issue that they consider would occur on Poverty Lane is that part of it narrows to 5.5 metres at the railway bridge. I don't know about a weight restriction. It's something we try to find out.
Well, maybe that's an option. Then they can't go up Poverty Lane with their site traffic. As I say, to me, option 6 is a no-brainer. That's the way forward. But anyway, it's something to consider, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, we could look into that.
Okay.
Do you know if there's any signage at the bridge about weight restriction?
There isn't. There isn't
No,
from
I haven't
memory.
seen any signs.
Angela.
Councillor Jonathan Desmond.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. It's not an answer really, but I've read, because I can't remember where it is that I've read it, but I've read somewhere in the last couple of hours that it's been confirmed that there isn't weight restriction on it by Merseyrail. But if I'm honest, I can't tell you where I've read that, if I'm totally honest.
Small bridge, you know.
Every bridge has got a weight restriction by law. But anyway, that's a question maybe they could put forward.
Because it's one we could
Councillor Carlson.
Highways Department.
The Highways Department would definitely know. If we can't get it out of them, then we can try Network Rail.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chris Carlson.
Thanks, Josh. Wouldn't that be something Tony Carr would be able to get hold of, the weight limits? Because I'm also thinking, you know, the length of these vehicles, it's not exactly a humpty back bridge, but it could certainly be, because of the length of them, I'm thinking, wouldn't there be a risk of it actually beaching, for want of a better word?
Breaking its back.
Yeah, on the camper of that bridge.
That's something else that we can ask. Have you got your hand raised? Right, Phil?
Just for information, the consultation we've done with people who fed back to us, there's nearly 100 people now, not one person has said that they want anything other than option 6. So there's no indications of any alternative route being considered by the public.
Councillor Sayers, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it's only an answer to Edward's question. What I would suggest the stance of the Town Council, from my opinion, should be is no other option other than option 6 is viable, and certainly it's not. None of the other routes are acceptable. When you go through them, it's quite clear when they put their sort of SWOT analysis on the 6 options. I mean, actually, they're only given 5 options. They're actually saying 6 isn't an option because it's not deliverable. When you try and vote for option 6, they try and feed you down the line of picking 1 to 5 in a sort of a sweetheart vote, you know, which one's your favourite. But what I would suggest is when you look at those, the 1 to 5, some of them are clearly not deliverable, like Spencer's Lane, it's far too narrow. So they're not intending that. They've already had contractors out. Me and Patrick ambushed a guy on the Sunday on Eastway, who was a private contractor employed by the developers to survey Fox House and Eastway, and it's quite clear they're the routes they're after. It's either Fox House and Eastway or one of either. And I would suggest that our stance should be none of them are acceptable. You know, even if they widen Eastway, which would be unforgivable for them to take away those verges to try and get huge lorries down there. I agree with what Ken was saying. I drive over that bridge in my own car, and you're worried about something coming the other way. I've spoken to the head teacher at Summerhill. She says it's a nightmare when the tractor just goes over it. When you look, and I've got photographs of some of the stuff that is built in the 39 houses at Turnbridge, you're talking about basically the kind of thing that moves tanks for the army, loaded with sewage tubes. And this is for 39 houses, almost bigger than the primary school, parked up out. And all the promises they gave us about delivery times, what they did, because they couldn't enter the site, they were parking on the zigzag lines outside of the Green Park Primary School with these sewage wagons. I've got photographs of them. So basically, they won't deliver on their promises. The whole thing is tenuous, to say the least, in that it's flawed. The only thing that good that will come out of it, I think, if they're being honest, is that the vast majority of people who vote will have voted for option 6. So I think really it's a line in the sand for me. It's option 6 or nothing. They don't build.
Councillor Frank Sharp.
Philip, I like your point 7 on page 13, where it says the applicant to state the option 6 is not deliverable is public acknowledgement of the prerequisite flood relief works to Winnie Brook is also undeliverable. So it goes back to that point about these being inextricably linked as well, you know, so that's not deliverable. And just an observation on, I posted online recently when we were trying to sort of conjure up support for this option 6, is that Park Lane is currently being used by Persimmon for a site entrance with lots of soil and deliveries, and it's been, the whole road on Park Lane is absolute mess. You can't distinguish sometimes the difference between the road and the pavements. It's so thick with debris, and the road surface is coming apart. The drains are completely full, you know, with sort of flooding every time it rains mildly. So it doesn't bode well for any kind of assurance that they currently they're suggesting they're going to make in terms of cleaning, you know, tyres of vehicles and being a good neighbour in any way, shape or form. And they put this consultation out at the same time when they're undermining themselves with this feature just around the corner, you know, at Park Lane.
Councillor Ross Ferguson.
Yeah, councillors just sort of stole my thunder to a certain degree. I'm going to say that I think we've all seen evidence of a person have conducted themselves whilst they've been building the Poppyfield site. I was absolutely horrified when I was down Park Lane last week and saw the mud all over the road. Everything was filthy. These people made promises they were supposed to do certain things. One of them was cleaning the roads. And it's quite obvious to me that this company does not put forward what it promises to. Once they've got the contract and once they've got the go-ahead, they seem to think they do anything. And I mean, I agree with Councillor Sharp. If that's the state of Park Lane, which is a relatively small site compared to what they're posing, the whole of Maghull is going to be baked in mud and all sorts of things. It's just not acceptable. Option 6 is the only one as far as I'm concerned. None else should be on the table. And they can't provide option 6, then they can't provide the houses.
Well said, Ross Ferguson. I just want to interrupt and just say I agree with everyone. I just think you can't take all them bricks past the schools. There's 2 schools. If you're using Eastway and you're using Poverty Lane, there's 2 schools there. You've got Marycourt and you've also got the primary school on Poverty Lane. And I just think you can't take that many bricks past the schools. I think it's unright for everyone's health, personally. Councillor John Sayers.
Go on.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Ross and Frank were saying, basically the Turnbridge site on Turnbridge Road, what's happened there is they've come up with a construction traffic management plan, which is full of motherhood and apple pie, and now it's going to be lovely. But what happens is that a lot of the drivers are self-employed drivers, and they're on P-square. The time is money, and so we've got them speeding up and down, parking where they shouldn't, trying to get in. And then when the residents complain to me, and I complain to the enforcement officers. Basically, the company's coming back and saying, well, they're self-employed, there's nothing we can do about it. You know, we tell them and they won't do it. They're not going to wait and wash their wheels when they could be off getting another load. That's what they're getting paid on. You know, these guys own their own lorries. They're not companies. And they're all subcontractors of subcontractors. The Persimmon and Countrywide have no control over these vehicles whatsoever. All of these promises are basically absolutely worthless. We've got to have option 6.
Chair, can I come in?
Well, Patrick McKinley.
Thanks. It really is an emotive subject, this, and everybody feels really strongly over it. The only thing that's going to beat them is if we can identify that they've contravened some planning law or other. It seems to me one of the fundamental flaws in what they have done and are doing are saying that they can deliver the infrastructure. Now, in the local plan, it says infrastructure will be delivered at the right place and at the right time. And I think what's happened as a result of the kind of conflict between the two parties now, that has seriously brought into doubt whether they can deliver the infrastructure at the right place and at the right time. Because it's obvious there are inherent time lags on the pace of developments between the two developers. Now, I know what they'll say, and I've spoken to the Sefton planning officers over this. They say, well, the developers are saying that they meet the requirements of the local plan. I don't think they do, particularly around the infrastructure and that kind of policy to deliver the infrastructure at the right place and at the right time. It cannot be delivered at the right time if one party is way behind the other party, because timeliness then becomes a big issue, because there must be some parameters around, apart from saying after the 500th house. If something is time bound, there must be restrictions or guidelines on what is an acceptable timeline. And I think we could go at that. The other thing which I've been kind of, and I am pursuing with them, is the issue about the flood attenuation canyon and what they say, the runoff rate. The runoff rate is the amount of water that runs off the flood once it floods and is assimilated into the ground. Well, what they've kind of based their assessment on, I understand, is piling of the height of the water table on that site. And they come out with 2 observations. One side, the water table apparently is 1 metre below the ground when they did the piling, and that's at the Poverty Lane end. At the School Lane end, they say it's 3 metres below the ground when they did the piling. When I asked when they actually did the piling, because the water table's at different levels throughout the year, it took me a hell of a long time, but I eventually got the answer that one piling was done in the spring, the other one was done in the autumn. Now, the water table in the winter on that site is a lot higher than in the spring and the autumn. And you only have to look at what happened this winter, where there were virtual lakes all over the site that were standing water for weeks and weeks on end. So I'm questioning the validity of their observations, their data around the water table. And this becomes even more important when we look at the Environment Agency, who have said the clear and present danger in terms of flooding is surface water flooding as a result of increased rainfall and the intensity of rainfall, plus the rise in sea levels. Now, there will be an impact on the River Alt and the inland waterways when the sea rises. So that inevitably has an impact on the water table. So even if they're saying now that their observations substantiate a runoff rate where that flood will only be cover the 200-foot canyon for say a day or two. That won't be the case. That will be underwater most of the time. So therefore, I think that that's another thing we need to go at. So it's going to be the infrastructure, which I don't think they can deliver that now, because Edwards highlighted, and I didn't realise that that flood attenuation, the flood canyon, the 200-foot wide canyon, is actually partly on or wholly on Swift's land. Is that correct? Because how the hell are they going to do that if he's not given them permission to access the land now? So
if you're talking about the brook, councillor, I know half of the brook does go across Swift's land because I walk down the field myself and you see it go right across his land.
I mean, that's my tuppenny worth for the moment. I'd welcome Edward's comments on the issues about the piling and the actual delivery of the infrastructure.
Well, I think our concern, having read the consultation, their consultation background paper, is that because they're saying they can't deliver the road, the next question, if you can't deliver the road, how are you going to deliver the flood relief? And the two, I mean, it's supposed to be a comprehensive development, and we could have up to 500 houses built before we get the spine road. So if you can't deliver the infrastructure for the road, it follows you can't deliver it for the drainage. So it seems to me that they've sort of let the cat out the bag. It's something that we said, wasn't it, to planning committee? We had doubts whether they could implement the drainage scheme. The officers at the time said it could be done by a condition, and we didn't believe that, because it's on two different they're two different parcels of land in different ownerships. So how can it be delivered? And now they're saying they can't build the road because they call it third party land. Well, it's not third party. They are the applicant, and the site at the north includes access. The very thing that we want, the road, they've applied for the access. So why can't we have it? It's purely about commercial negotiations. So I think for the drainage, they're going to come, I suspect what will happen is they'll come up with some other temporary solution. I don't believe they can implement the works for the brooks. For the brook, there'll be something else.
When we were at planning committee in January, the officers recommended conditions of approval that stated that sort of sub-phases could be, the drainage for sub-phases could be temporary measures. So they factored that in by way of conditions. And the boundary between the two halves of the site is actually the brook. So presumably the midpoint of the brook is where one site begins and the other ends. So the flood relief channel that they said is necessary to mitigate the flood risk requires work both sides of the brook. And because the application for the northern half is in outline, they can't go onto Swift's land and start digging a channel. And there's another implication as well related to the construction environment management plan, and that is that channel will require a lot of excavation. So the result of that is HGVs leaving the site full of subsoil. So that will have an impact on the community, the actual construction of that flood relief channel that they don't seem to have considered at all.
That river itself floods anyway.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, as I say, it just floods. You see it flood. It's deep now. Do you know what I mean? It's not good.
I mean, I think one of the reasons why they didn't want to produce a construction environment management plan as they were required to as part of the application is because they didn't want to admit they couldn't do things. And now in this exercise, they've had to say we can't do option 6 because it's in the ownership of someone else, a third party. But they're not third party. They're part of the application, inextricably linked.
Yeah. And the other thing that was the decision at committee is that full construction management plans had to be submitted for both applications and therefore both sites. And this is only half. They're only looking at the land north of Poverty Lane, and the land to the south of School Lane doesn't figure in any of this.
Councillor Chris Carlson.
Thank you, Josh. I made this point at the meeting a couple of Saturdays ago. When we start driving wagons over that land, we're going to get compaction, which reduces the ability of the soil to absorb water and increases the amount of overland flow, which will increase the amount of flooding. So it's critical that that channel is constructed at least as well as the initial phase of housing. I understand what you were saying there, Philippa, about they can construct it subsequently. Was that correct? So they can make it bigger as they need to, as they put more houses on. Is that what he was saying there?
I think the implication at planning committee was that the flood relief channel wasn't really ever going to come about, because we think that Persimmon and/or Countrywide want to do a much smaller scheme on their part that would have some other drainage solution that's cheaper and easy for them to implement.
So, see, this is a massive concern, because we've already got flooding. We're going to cover a lot of the available greenfield sites to absorb water. We're going to cover that with concrete or other substrates that are not absorbent. And I think it's going to create a massive problem. You know what you're saying before, Pat, about the water table pilings? Because I'm thinking, obviously they're not compatible at either end of the site if they take the measurements at different points of the year. Can we repeat that as a town council so that we've got our own evidence of where these water levels are? Because it seems really strange to me that one would be 1 metre below the surface and one would be 3 metres below the surface. You know, when I worked in construction, water was used as a level because it would always find its own level.
Really what you're asking is for me to find a consultant out there who will go and do that for us. I can, but essentially you need to pass a resolution to tell me to go and do it. And then I'll go and do it, as it were.
But I'd like to suggest that we do that then, because I think we need our own evidence, because I think that water data could be flawed.
Can we access the land?
There's a public right of way through it.
That's what I say. I walk on that public right of way every day.
So as long as we don't deviate too much off the public right of way, yes. I'm sure they'll manage to arrange it anyhow.
Councillor Frank Shaw.
I'd second what Chris has just said. There's another issue which has not been clarified, and that's the water runoff from poppy fields, which is, I understand, millions of gallons over a period of time. Now, my understanding is that on the plans for the land east of Maghull, and the water that is going into the flood channel does not include the runoff from the poppy field site. Now, if we can clarify that, if we can find that out, because that's a hell of a lot more water going into the actual flood canyon than they are saying will happen through their planning application. So I think we need to find that out, Angela.
Okay.
Because that's a huge issue, that the amount of water. Because remember when they first built poppy fields, they built that channel and then it nearly flooded. So they decided, well, we've got to put this somewhere else. And then they channeled it under the road and onto the land east of Maghull. And there were huge drainage pipes put across the land that actually goes into the Winnebrook.
Yes,
So
there were terrible problems with the with the water as they were constructing the bit that's now complete, as they were heading into the car park for Maghull North.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember that the road there was completely and utterly flooded because it didn't appear to be channeling into the pit they dug to take the water.
No.
There seems to be some issue with that.
But it goes into Winnebrook now.
Mm.
And I don't think that was in there on the land east of Maghull planning application.
No, it probably isn't. Okay.
Councillor Frank Shaw.
is probably reinforcing what Chris and Patrick have said already, but when I've gone to Poppyfield sites, I've never seen a compaction of houses together. You know, there's been the houses are so tightly knitted together, you could never build an extension. The gardens are so small, they're like a postage stamp. There's nothing in the front of the house. They've condensed the housing, you know, to maximise obviously the profits. But my question is, because of the density of the housing that they've created, and presumably what they're going to emulate on the proposed site ahead of us, whether that would impact upon the flood risk as well, because I've never seen houses so densely packed together, you know, and that presumably must have some, you know, relationship to the amount of runoff water from the estate itself.
Councillor Ross
That's a question for Philip and Edward.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I mean, I suppose with regard to Poppy Field, yes, you can see there what is their sustainable drainage system, and you comment on it, Angela, with the ditches that they have in front of the site. I suppose there may be pipes that run underneath the road and go towards the brook. What normally would happen in the planning application stage, their drainage consultants would calculate how much runoff comes from the site. X amount is held in those swales that you can see. And yes, there may be some runoff to the brook, but it wouldn't be any more than a greenfield site. As if it was a greenfield site, it'll be, you know, the pipe will be throttled. So there's only a limited flow coming out of it. And so that's normally how these systems work. But in order to sort of get to the bottom of it, you would need to have a drainage consultant advise you, because Philippa and I are not competent to, you know, we're not competent to advise you on those matters. So I think what we do know is the drainage scheme for the, if there was one flood risk assessment exercise for the whole site for East Maghull, we know that. They didn't do separate, I don't think, exercises for the north and south site, and whether that is valid for what's going forward, because they don't seem to be they don't seem to be in a position to build the flood relief channel. So probably somebody does need to look at that from a drainage perspective as to whether that's feasible. Is it going to work? And we haven't really got the ammunition for you, the competence to be able to deliver that, I don't think. So you would need that expertise if you want to try and get to the bottom of it.
Edward, could I just follow up on what I was saying before? The fact that Persimmon builds the houses so densely together, and often we're hearing on the news quite often about, you know, preserve your front garden, you know, because that's going to help the drainage and you know, and stay in time. But I don't see, when you look at the Persimmon homes on poppy fields, and if they're going to repeat those kind of practices on the new site, that the amount of concrete that's going to be actually put down in such a close vicinity, I would have thought that it's going to be a nightmare in terms of the drainage, you know, because you won't have any front gardens to talk about. And I've even heard that the local postman, because I live quite close to the Popfield site, and they said, you know, that they have to have special furniture to get to fit in the front room because it's that small, and there's no chance of any extensions. And they're building a postage stamp, you know, and consequently the drainage, you know, alongside that is very, very well considerably reduced.
Well, that's right. I mean, as you build, obviously the runoff is going to be much greater when you've got concrete roofs, driveways, compared to a greenfield situation. But what every developer, every contractor has to show is how do you cope with this runoff, ensure that it's no more than if it's a green field. And the solutions are on most sites, and not like this one, is that you either construct swales which hold the water and it drains naturally into the water table as was suggested earlier, or you have to build retention tanks underneath the ground, and that holds the water and it fills up, and then it releases it at a reduced flow into a brook or to a stream, so it has no more effect than if it was a green field. That's the theory of it. In this situation, we know that they've got to undertake vast works to Willie Brook, And I think, you know, that's part of the flood relief scheme for this site. And I think the concern is how they're going to do that if you haven't got the landowners working together. How can it be implemented? And if you can't build the road, then you can't build the flood relief works. You know, one begets the other, doesn't it? Or it shows that something's not working. And at the end of the day, you know, it can be flood relief channels, or it can be spine roads, or it can be ransom strips. But these things are just a matter of commercial negotiation. The owners have to negotiate how much is it worth and how much is it going to reduce their land value. And somebody doesn't want to do that exercise for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really what it's all about. It comes down to money, actually.
Councillor Ross Ferguson. You have to unmute yourself, Ross.
I'm trying to unmute you.
How's that?
There you go.
Yeah, I have to agree with what everyone else has been saying, and it's clear to me that the only thing this company can guarantee is that they're going to build a lot of houses. Everything else is all ifs and buts and maybes and whens. And as far as the flooding's concerned, those of us who've lived here a long time know that that particular part of the road outside Swift's Farm has had flooding issues for the last 40 or 50 years. Now, all right, the road doesn't flood now, but once they build those houses, what's it going to be like then? I just think they should be stopped until they can guarantee that they will build that relief road and that particular flood relief system will cope with the amount of water that it's going to get. Thank you.
Councillor Chris Carson.
Thank you, Josh. Just to come back to John's original point, John Sayers' original point there, it's option 6 or nothing. And I think we're all agreed on that. And then I made a proposal there that we carry out our own water table survey so that we've got something that we can absolutely trust and believe in to go back to the developer and the Environment Agency and say, actually, these are the figures that we've come up with, because we really can't trust the figures that Persimmon and Countryside have given us. So I'm proposing that. I know Pat seconded it. Do we need to take a vote on that, Angela?
Yes, please. If you could agree it.
Okay, well, I've proposed it. Pat seconded it. So obviously I'm agreeing it. Show of hands, please.
We're agreed. Yeah.
That looks unanimous, that. Thank you. I'll feel down the back of the couch and get some money.
There's loads there.
Okay, that's just the point I wanted to make there. I just didn't want to miss it because I know it's a little bit more difficult, isn't it, when we're all bouncing around.
It's okay. I'd made a note of it. I wouldn't have let you go without that one being done.
No problem. Okay. Right, I'll shut up then. Let someone else speak.
Angela, didn't Sefton Council do any kind of survey on this?
What they have is they have their own drainage experts, because they, you know, for various reasons, they have their own drainage experts, and those details go to them from the planning authority. They send them out for them to be, because they're a statutory consultee just the same way that we are, but they have slightly more power in the sense of, or clout, in the sense of, if they said, do you know what, this system isn't going to work, the runoff's going to be too great, then that would have more weight given to it than us saying, do you know what, we've got issues with this. That's just the nature of the beast. The same way that it will go out to the Environment Agency for them to make comments about what's going to happen to the Winnie Brook, etc., etc. They have slightly more, well, they have a lot more clout than we do for the same reason. They're the experts.
When we went to Bootle Town Hall for that public meeting, and
for the planning committee meeting, yes.
Yeah, they wheeled out all their experts in each realm. Were they basing their feedback on independent information that they've actually obtained?
It's based on what the developer submits, plus any information that they already have. So say there had been previously an issue with it, then the drainage experts at Sefton would say, well, hang on a minute, we know that this occurs. If they don't have any information, then they have to go on what the developer submits. They don't go out and do their own testing. Okay.
Can I make an observation on that, and Chair? The Winnie Brook, it's kind of the responsibility for managing the water course. The Winnie Brook is split into two. The railway divides the Winnie Brook. The Foxhouse Lane side of Winnie Brook is classed as what the Environment Agency call a river. The land east of Maghull, Winnie Brook, is classed as an ordinary water course. So therefore the responsibility for that water course is not the Environment Agency, it's an organisation called the Local Lead Flood Authority. And the Local Lead Flood Authority in this instance is actually a department of Sefton Council. So when we were at a meeting and I raised this issue about responsibility for managing the water course going forward, there was a chap there who is one of the managers in the Local Lead Flood Authority. And when I said to him, do you realise that going forward, Sefton Council de facto will be responsible for the management of that water course because it's the responsibility of the Local Lead Flood Authority? The response was, no, I don't think you're right, Patrick. I think it's not us. It's not us. But the fact of the matter is, it is them. It is at the moment, it will be Sefton Council who will be responsible through the Local Lead Flood Authority for making sure that water course doesn't flood. Now, what they say is that, you know, at the moment it seems to be okay. But with all the changes that are taking place with the environment and so on and so forth, in 10 years' time, who knows what it's going to be like? And Sefton Council per se could be, I think, responsible for litigation, people taking litigation out against them, if that water course actually floods. The only get out of jail card for them is that if they can have the Winnie Brook channel classed as a SUD, if they can manage to do that, the United Utilities are looking at adopting SUDs, sustainable urban drainage systems. The only reason that Persimmon and the Swift lot are putting that canyon in is because they cannot put ordinary SUDs in because the water table is too high. On one side of the site, they can't just dig a big hole because it'd fill up and the water wouldn't go anywhere. I mean, this is in the planning documents somewhere. I can't remember where I read it. But the reason why they've built that channel is because they cannot put in ordinary SUDs.
Councillor Tom Hughes.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the previous point about remeasuring the water table. What period of the year would that be done? Or is it going to be taken in the spring and the winter and they're going to do an average? Because obviously the water table changes throughout the year.
Councillor Carlson has indicated he'd like to speak. I defer to an expert.
But where are the experts turning up? It should be done twice, Tom. They should do it in the spring and they should do it in the autumn because obviously you haven't got as much rainfall in the summertime. That's why I think the one's flawed because if they've done it in two different locations at two different times a year, then you can't get a true picture of where the water is. So it should be done twice at a minimum.
Are they taking an average throughout the year for those two periods?
Really, it should be repeated at several different years to give you that average. Because obviously, if you've got 1 year, as in this month now, July, if you go out into that field now and measure the water table, it's going to be quite high because of the amount of rain we've had. So it should be ongoing, but they're only going to read it once, and if the results are favourable to what they want, then they'll go with that. If they're unfavourable, they might repeat it and look for the average. So that's why I'm saying we should get our own, really. And then we'll know for definite where that water is, what level that water is at.
All right, thank you.
So really, if everybody's happy-ish, are you okay with the submission of the draft letter that Philippa and Edward have done for us?
Yeah.
I have told White Peak Plannings that I'll be submitting our response tomorrow so that it does actually fit in with the 29th of July timescales. I notified them of that before the just when the consultation started. So if you're happy that represents your views, if you could let me know.
Yes, yes.
I think they've done a splendid job as usual. I think it's really comprehensive.
Lovely. Okay, I'll submit that. I won't be adding anything to it per se, but what I will be doing is the amount of people that have contacted us to say that they want option 6, we'll be putting those figures in as well. If you want, I will also submit it to the planning department as well, so that you can't hide what we've sent, together with the numbers of people that have responded to us.
Angela, can I suggest you put the names and address of the people as well? Because they may say they're not accepting kind of just comments about 200 people said this or said that.
Councillor Lloyd, did you have your hand up? No, sorry.
No, the reason I'm pausing is because we've taken the names and addresses for the council, you know, for our purposes, as opposed to submitting them somewhere else. And I'm just conscious of GDPR with regards to that. What I will say is, if they want us to provide evidence of who those people are, we can do.
Right.
All right, just to cover ourselves in the first instance.
Yeah.
We put that letter on the Maghull Town Council website as well, please.
Yeah, will do.
Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Lovely. Right. If nobody's got any more questions, etc., for Philippa and Edward, can I say thank you very much to them, and thank you, and
thanks.
and good night. I don't think you'll be interested in the rest of what we've got to discuss.
Thanks,
Thank you
Edward.
very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Philippa.
Cheers, thank you. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
Right.
And I've just got one more point before we move off the lands east of Maghull. It's not to do with Edward and Philippa. It's when I asked Greg, got his last name, the environmental health officer, Greg Martin. I asked him to put some monitoring stations up on Poverty Lane and Days Lane. Has he done that yet?
He has done it. I asked him for the results because we were notified that they'd gone up, and then we weren't notified again. But he's on leave this week, so he's told me he'll send it through to me next week.
Okay, all right then. Because you know, I think we'll see a significant rise in pollution levels if they start driving wagons down Poverty Lane.
Yeah, I'll keep on top of it. It's been missed a bit because they weren't doing anything, but they should be up there, and we will get at least we'll have a considerable baseline for what's happening around there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Great. Item number 7.
6.
Planning applications. Land ejected to Maghull Railway Station, Melling Lane, Maghull. Removing of petition 20. I can't read that word.
Where are we? Pursuant
To planning permission. DC 2014 approved to 11/8/16 to remove raised timber walkway. Members are asked to consider a response.
Okay.
You can hear things, isn't it?
The reason it's on is because this was a major application and we have been approached. We received the petition that was actually on the planning site. What it is, it's the new houses by Maghull, old Maghull train station, 14 houses, and the land actually continues along the length of the railway. In fact, I can share it for you now, just to share screen. Where are we? There we are. Share. That's the site, okay, as it's coming in. So as you can see, it runs along the length of the platform. And strangely enough, it goes to the Poverty Lane Bridge that we've been talking about as part of the land east of Maghull. There's supposed to be a raised walkway over there because, strangely enough, it is very boggy. Trees have been allowed to just grow and self-seed, etc., etc. We've received a petition to say that the people who live round and about don't actually want that raised walkway because they're concerned regarding security and safety, as well as who's going to maintain it. The developer, who isn't the original developer, it was the Maghull group who originally put in the planning application, and then they sold the site with the planning permission having been granted. So it's a new developer who's come along and said, you know, the people around and about have come to us and said that they don't want it. I don't want to put it in. It's a security issue. It's antisocial behaviour issue because they're worried that it will encourage people to meet there and break into houses, etc. So the developer has submitted this application, and of course it's up to yourselves to decide whether or not you want to support his request to remove the requirement for the walkway, or whether or not you would say support a refusal to say no, he has to do the walkway. I can say the petition that was submitted is considerable, and the feelings of the people round and about were, well, we have Bulls Wood as an access if we want to cut through to Station Road and reach the railway station that way. I'm not entirely sure there's anything else I can say to help you with these. So I'm going to stop sharing because then I will bring it back to where we are. It's Councillor Sharp sent something through as well from somebody who wished us to refuse or recommend refusal of this application because it was supposed to be an eco park, and it should be kept as an eco park as part of the requirements to keep a bit of green space within the site. He did also mention about Section 106 payments. As far as I'm aware, the developer is not making a request to reduce his Section 106 payments, which totals approximately £87,000. Okay.
Councillor Ken Hughes.
Well, surely if the developer doesn't want it and the people don't want it, this is another no-brainer again, isn't it? I hope.
Couldn't possibly comment, Councillor. It's entirely up to yourself.
But surely we could go around the houses again, and if the people don't want it and the developer doesn't want it, well, I would think we should agree with this. Open to discussion.
Councillor John Sayers.
Yeah, it seems a bit simplistic, this. I remember this coming up when they first put in for planning permission there. And again, it was like all these like nice promises. This walkway, wasn't it supposed to provide access when we were talking about like having a linear park around Maghull, where there'd be access from one park to the other with the minimum amount of crossing roads, etc.?
The land, I have to say, comes out at Poverty Lane, just at the bridge. So really, it's not safe to walk there. Because as you're crossing over to reach land east of Maghull, you're actually halfway up the bridge. So you'd have to walk further on down to cross over anyway.
You mean the access crossing the road's not safe?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a bit like Park Lane, isn't it, when you get to the end there from the railway station? That's not very safe either. The other thing was, these people in the petition, the last time I was there, those houses weren't occupied. So
they're not the ones that have signed the petition. The ones that have signed the petition are Hornby Close, Daisy Mount, Willow Hay, Swan Walk, Kennessy Close, all around.
Does it pass at the back of their houses, does it?
Yes, I think what it is that it would allow access. The fear is crime. It would allow a route out which cannot be followed easily by a police car, because essentially you're crossing from Melling Road, isn't it there? Melling Road, Melling Lane, Melling Lane to Poverty Lane, and a police car will have to go around some other way, and by that time they're lost.
Oh, okay.
Angela, is it worth commenting what the police said about this?
The police said, don't do it. The short answer to that is the police's recommendation was not to go ahead with it, because the way the walkway has been done, it also passes by the garages that have been built for the new houses, which would allow a not particularly athletic youth, it has to be said, to get up on top of the garage roof and then maybe access an upper story window if it had been left open. So there's that element about it. Plus, there's a voyeuristic opportunity because the walkway also passes by the living room windows. So the police recommendation was take it away.
So that's
Sorry,
three
Councillor Sharp.
parties against it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The list groweth.
Sorry again.
Yeah, Councillor Sharp.
Councillor Frank Sharp.
I received a letter from a local resident very late in the day this afternoon, and I haven't had really time to digest all the aspects to it, but the central message seems to be it dismantled some of the arguments that have been made for the removal of the raised walkway. And he was of the opinion that when the plans went in originally, I think in 2014, that on the leaflets that were all given, one of the preconditions were that they, when they built these houses, they retain the wood and look after the wood that's there, create a sort of a wildlife-friendly pond, and have this accessible walkway around the wildlife area. So he feels obviously concerned that if they're not going to have the walkway, they might renege on all the other aspects of the wildlife area that was promised originally, that persuaded people in the first place to go along with the project. But as I said, I haven't had sufficient time to digest what he sent to me because it was very late in the day, you know.
To be fair, Councillor Sharp, he can always submit those comments to the planning authority as well. Yeah.
Councillor Ross Ferguson.
And then we've got Councillor Thomas Hughes and then Councillor Lloyd. Oh, he's not unmuted. Hang on just one moment. Hang on just a moment, Councillor Ferguson. There you go, you're good now.
Yeah, just on, it's just an observation. I mean, I've heard various people talking about this pathway walkway through there, and you know, it's quite, some are for it, some are against it. But as far as the planners are concerned, and I know what you're saying with the police saying voyeuristic opportunities. Does that mean they're going to take down the pedestrian bridge on Maghull station? Because every time I've gone across there, people have said, fancy building houses there, you can see right into the rooms. You know, I mean, it's laughable. They build houses in a certain position and then expect other people to avert their gaze or whatever. And it's just, I don't know, these people just aren't thinking before they actually build these houses. And it seems to be quite common now that, you know, the developers, once they get permission, they just go back on their promises and they don't think about the local environment, as simple as that. Thank you.
Councillor Tom Hughes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a few points. Who's actually responsible for the maintenance of the walkway in the first place?
Well, and that's an interesting one. Normally what they do is they do a management company. So the people who purchase the houses, they do that with a covenant that says they will then have to pay into a management company. I'll declare an interest here. I'm trying to avoid the town council being responsible for the maintenance of it because it's nothing to do with us and we never requested it go in there on the 2014 planning application. So it should be a management company. That's the way the developers generally do it now.
And there is access around the development if this walkway was removed.
Yeah, they could use Balls Wood or whatever the road is next to it that comes off Poverty Lane and goes down to Melling Lane.
So there is alternatives.
Yeah.
Right.
Councillor Adam Lloyd.
So, am I right in understanding it's the people who've petitioned against it are the possible owners or the owners of new builds, and also the existing residents, and they don't want it?
Yeah, they're on Station Road, Melling
and the police have
Road.
advised against it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it should be built. No.
Okay. Right. Does somebody want to put forward a proposal then, so that I can do my letter to planning?
Well, I propose we vote against.
Recommend approval. That's what you
Recommend
go for.
approval. Thank you.
There you go.
Angela, can we say that's because of we're taking cognizance of what the residents and the police say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can do that. I mean, you can go on and see that there's been quite a hefty petition submitted. Unfortunately, what they've had to do is redact all the names and all the signatures, so it looks like there's large chunks of black block in there. But I've got a copy of the petition that was submitted to the town council as well.
Oh, and
sorry,
it's like the Russia report.
it is. Yeah, it's been redacted, and to protect the guilty. So that's really what it comes down to, is there's a considerable wealth of feeling from the local residents to say they don't want it for various reasons. Okay, so you've got the proposal. You're happy to second it, someone?
I'll second that.
Yeah, all agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah, lovely, thank you.
Item number 7. Annual governance statements and return. Members are asked to approve the annual return, pages 21 to 26.
Lovely, thank you very much, Chair. It's an exciting time of year where we have to agree the annual return to go to the external auditor. These figures have been sent to the internal auditor, who has stated that he's happy with them. That's on one of the pages in here, which I've passed through. Where are we? It was page 23 was the opinion of the internal auditor. In order to comply with this, and what's being ticked on page 4 before it gets signed, is that Debbie has a load of statements that she's going to read out and state that we've ticked yes, and you have to state that you agree with it. Okay? If you don't agree with it, that's fine. You just need to tell us why you don't agree with it for whatever reason, so we can discuss our way through it. But it's part of the audit process. If I can hand over to Debbie.
Okay, thank you, Angela. I hope you all can hear me. So what I need to do is obviously go through each statement, which is from 1 to 9. So I'll just read each one out. So the first one is, we have put in place arrangements for effective financial management during the year and for the preparation of the accounting statements. Do you agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Number 2, we maintained an adequate system of internal control, including measures designed to prevent and detect fraud and corruption, and reviewed its effectiveness, and I've ticked yes. Do you agree?
Agreed.
Number 3, we took all reasonable steps to assure ourselves that there are no matters of actual or potential non-compliance with laws, regulations and proper practices that could have a significant financial effect on the ability of this authority to conduct its business or manage its finances. And I've said, yes, we've done that. Do you agree?
Agreed.
Councillor Adam Lloyd.
Yeah, can I just ask, I know, is there still a disagreement going on at the minute with the cricket club with regards to the street lighting that was run off the cricket club metering? Would that affect the answer for item number 3?
No, because there hasn't been any non-compliance with any laws or regulations.
Definitely not. No.
Definitely not.
Okay.
Okay, do you want me to carry on?
Was that agreed? Everybody said yes? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely.
Number 4, we provided proper opportunity during the year for the exercise of electors' rights in accordance with the requirements of the accounts and audit regulations, and I've ticked yes. Do you agree?
Agreed.
Number 5, we carried out an assessment of the risks facing this authority and took appropriate steps to manage those risks, including the introduction of internal controls and/or external insurance cover where required, and I've ticked agreed. Yeah. Do you agree?
Agreed.
Number 6, we maintained throughout the year an adequate and effective system of internal audit of the accounting records and control systems, and I've ticked yes. Do you agree?
Agreed.
Number 7, we took appropriate action on all matters raised in reports from internal and external audit, and I've ticked yes. Do you agree? Number 8, we considered whether any litigation liabilities or commitments, events or transactions occurring either during or after the year end have a financial impact on this authority, and where appropriate have included them in the accounting statements, and I've ticked yes. Do you agree?
Yes.
And the last
Councillor Adam Lloyd.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, again, sorry, I take it. What's happening with the outstanding loan with Maghull Cricket Club with regards to the disagreement with the street lighting coming off the electricity meter? Has that been put in the audit?
Yeah,
put in the accounts?
The loan went through our accounting system. The money the cricket club paid back, albeit it wasn't paid off, but the money that they paid back also went through the accounting system. So yes, there's a liability there from the cricket club to us as far as our accounts are concerned, but that is included within the accounts because we don't know how else to do it. It's not hidden anywhere. It is within the accounts, and the internal
vice versa.
and the internal auditor has seen our accounts. He's seen how Sage is performing, etc., etc. That's part of the background work to all of this. So they've seen that. And then if there are any liabilities, it could be something that the external auditor picks up on, because they pick on things each year about what they want to look at. So I don't think it was last year, but I think it was the year before. They asked how had we appointed our internal auditor. So we had to give them all the paperwork to say, how had we picked on this? So they pick on certain things and ask us to support that with paperwork. So this isn't the only paperwork that Debbie sends off. Debbie sends off all sorts of bank reconciliations, trial balance sheets, etc. from Sage. So they get to see all of that goes forward. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 9.
Can I just
so are
come in
we all
there?
happy with that now that that question has been asked and answered? Are we all happy that the answer is yes?
I just want to add to that. It's also minuted the offers of help and assistance that we gave to the Maghull Cricket Club, and the action group that we set up as well. Myself, Josh and Ross Ferguson sat on that and carried out repairs and installed meters and lighting and all this, that and the others. So that's all auditable, isn't it?
That is all auditable, yes. Should the external auditor wish to see that, or should the internal auditor wish to see that, we keep all of those records and are more than happy to pass them through so that they can check what we've been doing is correct.
Thanks,
Councillor John Sayers.
Yeah, I think I'm right on it. This is not about the merits of the disputes or liabilities. It's actually this vote is really about the fact that that dispute or liability exists is available to members of the public and anyone else who wants to look through our accounts and books and to our auditors. But it's not about the merits of it. You know, who's right, who's wrong.
No, it's about the systems that we put in place. So actually every single piece of expenditure that comes through the council goes through Sage in one way or another. That includes whether or not they owe us, we owe them, whether or not we've done it, whether or not we've ordered it in 1 year, but we're going to account for it in another year, etc. All of that is taken into account. These are about your systems, not about individual pieces of money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just also reaffirm what Angela's just said? What the external auditor, obviously this goes to them and they look at like a balance sheet, debtors and creditors, and it is about systems. Councillor Lloyd, are we complying with our legal requirements, and are we keeping good systems so that we're not, you know, we're doing everything correct and within the law? So it's not sort of like no individual or any organisation is it's more looking at the whole systems. Your internal auditor also is independent of us, and he comes in, he or she, and looks at what systems we have, and he or she will say, I want to look at this, and then goes through it all like a fine-tooth comb. So it is more looking at, you know, like for example, number 6 was, have we effective system of internal audit? Well, yes, because we have an independent person who comes in, who looks at all from the internal audit, and then it's then sent off again with a full set of what they ask us to send to them, which like will be sort of debtors and creditors, bank reconciliation, all that kind of information that they ask. And they do come back if they're not happy with it, I can assure you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, lovely.
Right. Number 9, we're nearly there.
Yes. Local councils only. Trust funds, including charitable, in our capacity as the sole managing trustee, we discharged our accountability responsibilities for the funds / assets, including financial reporting and, if required, independent examination or audit. And it's not applicable because we do not hold any trust funds. We're not like some councils who do hold trust funds. So that's why I've ticked not applicable, and it's been like that since time immemorial at this council. So that's why I've ticked not applicable. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay.
Right. So are you happy then, for us, having had a look at the figures, etc., are you happy for the Mayor to sign them off and for me to sign them off and for us to be sent off to the external auditor?
Yes.
Agreed.
Yep. Agreed.
Lovely. Thank you very much. That's it. With any luck, before November, we'll get an opinion from the external auditor about how well we've done.
Item number 8, lease for Bobby's Wood and Old Hall Park. Members are asked to consider the details of proposed lease for the 2 sites, pages 27 to 30.
Okay, we've waited a while for this from Sefton. I suspect they had planned to do it slightly more quickly, but COVID came in and they were pulled on to other duties. This is about signing the formal lease between ourselves and Sefton Council regarding the leasing of Bobby's Wood and Old Hall Park. The details, I haven't printed the lease out because that is commercial in confidence, but what I've done is we've done a summary of the key points on the lease to make sure that you're happy with them and that you would then be happy for me as your proper officer of your council to sign that lease on your behalf.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, agreed. Lovely.
Yeah.
Right, that was all we needed to know on that one. Right.
Item number 9, Borough of Culture. Did someone say something? It's not me. I can hear again.
You can
That's
hear
me,
you.
innit? Borough of Culture, potential artwork and comic strip locations. Members are asked to consider the report, pages 30 to 37, 31 to 37. Sorry.
Okay, we've been asked our opinion on where these things should go, really. If you recall, Frank Hornby took the poll of famous people in Sefton. So there's that to go through. And then there's, who is it? Isaac Roberts. Isaac Roberts is the other one. Does anybody have any strong opinions on where they should go, or what side of the building they can go?
I personally think Frank Hornby should be outside here. I do, because the
Is that an
expeditions
option?
on in there. It is right at the bottom. Council Dome, flat walls, no rails. Maghull Meadows Leisure Centre, last page 37.
Oh, right, okay.
Can we not have something on all of them walls?
I can send that back if that's what you want me to say.
They're not all owned by us, though, are they? So what happens then?
Well, we can let Sefton know who the owners of them are, because 3 of them are LCP.
But would that mean we'd have to pay for it, anything to be put there?
I wasn't planning on offering.
Wall.
We're only getting 2 pieces of artwork.
We're only getting 2 pieces of artwork.
make sure they come.
That wall on the
Councillor Tom
metal.
Hughes. Sorry, Chris
Wouldn't it-
Carlson.
No, it's
Yeah,
fine.
wouldn't-
Carry on, Tom.
No, it's all right. Wouldn't it be a good idea to have one of them by the Great Mogul facing the train station? Because obviously that's an entrance to Maghull. You know, a lot of people use the train coming into the town and can showcase what we have to offer. Plus, it's near where Frank Hornby originally used to live.
Yeah, we can. If that's what you want, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, that's just my opinion, but it's up to everyone else.
Good idea. Yeah.
No, I think it's a good point, Tom. I think the Meadows and the Mogul are big ideal sites.
Well, I think, excuse me.
Yeah. Councillor Bond says.
Right, well, I think it's great at the pubs, and obviously if you men agree to it. But personally, I think one should be at the square, Maghull Square.
Councillor Ross Ferguson.
Oh, let me unmute you. There you go.
I was thinking the same as Councillor Yvonne Sayers. I'd like something at the square, but given it being owned by London and Cambridge, and once again how awkward they can be, I don't think that's viable, because that particular side of the wall, what used to be the old Midland Bank, is an eyesore, and that area is an eyesore. It could do with brightening up, but I can't see them agreeing to it. So I'd go with the other one of the station and the Maghull Leisure Centre.
The only reason I'm going with Maghull Leisure Centre is I've been told that the expedition, the Frank Hornby expedition's meant to be happening.
Exhibition.
I can't pronounce these words. Sorry, councillors.
The exhibition for Frank Hornby. Yes, no, you're trying to put it in there.
It's meant to be in the Meadows, and it just makes sense if it was sat outside. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's close to us as Maghull Town Council.
Right, your
Councillor Frank Sharp, did you have your hand up before?
Yeah, but I was just thinking that, you know, they've got all these sites, but they've actually, they don't know who the owners are. And we do, of course, but I'm surprised they've actually put these options down. They haven't even asked the people, and there might be other options we might have to consider if there's a few no's, you know.
It'd be nice.
Do they need to know? Do they need to know straight away, or?
Well, we've been asked. I don't know how long. I mean, we haven't got a plans for another council meeting as yet, and chances are it's going to be September.
Yeah, I just thought it was a bit strange to put the ideas out there when there's no permissions.
Well, welcome to Sefton.
I'm sorry for interrupting everyone today. I'm terrible.
Can I,
Councillor June Burns.
All right.
If we can hear
Hi,
her.
everybody. For the Borough of Culture, I think the Frank Hornby should most definitely be on the Meadows because of the exhibition being upstairs. And I agree with Councillor Hughes about the Great Mogul being an entrance as well from the railway station, and being as it was Little Acre, wasn't it, that Robert Isaacs came from, so therefore it's the closest to where he actually originated that exhibition should be. But as somebody asked before about who's paying, it'll be coming out of the Borough of Culture money they're paying, so Sefton's paying out the Borough of Culture money.
So we could have more than one, is that what you're suggesting?
Oh no, we can only have one of each.
Right, okay.
Robert Isaacs,
Right, there we go, I'll stop asking.
Frank Hornby. So
Did Councillor Desmond have his hand up before?
Yeah, I did. I think June just said exactly what I was going to say. I agree with what Councillor Hughes said, because like obviously the station is sort of like an entrance to Maghull, but if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Hornby, one of the Hornby's houses was actually on the round station as well, so it's quite a appropriate area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Chris Carlson.
Sorry, Josh, just unmute myself there, mate. The point I was going to make has already been made by Councillor June Burns, so just in agreement now. I'll pass over to Pat.
Did you want to say something, Councillor? Did you want to say something, Councillor McKinley?
I'll go with the majority. I'm not precious either way.
Okay, well, you've got a proposal in front of you that you've got the Great Moghull. Take your earphone out. Phone's just taken out.
Can everyone go on mute if they're not talking? Because I'm getting some terrible feedback on this now.
Okay. Just going to go. Thank you for that. You've got a proposal in front of you that that we have the wall of the Great Moghull and the wall of the Meadows Leisure Centre. Are you all happy with those?
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah, lovely. All right, thank you very much.
Definitely Ross is coming from.
We live in a no blame culture, but it's you, Councillor Ferguson. But I've muted you. Okay, up to you.
Item number 10. Chair's closing comments. I don't have anything to say, but well done, everyone.
Chair, can I say something? I know we don't do any other business, but this is very relevant. I've just got an email. You know, before we were talking about poppy fields, the runoff from poppy fields onto the land east of Maghull, and the water from poppy fields going into the Winnie Brook. Remember that the land east of Maghull has been given or outline planning permission supported by the officers. They were trying to get it supported. I find that very interesting when you listen to this email. I asked Derek McKenzie, could he clarify if the runoff from poppy fields has goes into the land east of Maghull? So what he's done, he's passed it on to Sam Dimber, who's a senior drainage engineer, and Steve Matthews, who's a planning officer, has got involved now. This is the response. In relation to the runoff from poppy fields, I have asked Sam Dimber, and he is seeking further clarification from the developer's consultant. Either he or I will get back to you as soon as he receives a response. One would have thought that Sefton Council's drainage officers and planning officers who have given planning permission to the land east of Maghull would know whether or not the runoff from poppy fields has actually been included. They're going back to ask the developer's consultant whether the runoff from poppy fields is going into the land east of Maghull. I find that to be mind-blowing. That is an indictment. It's actually saying Sefton Council don't know. So what the issue we were discussing before is very pertinent. That's all I wanted to say. I thought you'd be interested, seeing as it's hot off the press.
Councillor Chris Carlson.
I've said it before, mate. I'm not impressed with Sefton Council. They should be holding this bloody developer to account, not going back to him and asking him where the water's going. They should be telling them where it's going. That's their bloody job.
It's not actually going to change how you've decided to vote on anything, has it?
It's only the evidence base that we use in any legal.
Yeah. Okay. If you want to forward that on to me tomorrow, Patrick, or tonight, I can have a look at it tomorrow and I can add it.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah.
Okay. Lovely. All right. Unless there is anything else, that is your council meeting concluded.
Do you want to go in the stream?
Thank you.
Yes, if you could finish the stream, please, Phil.
Thank you.
There you go. You're free
Thank
to
you for
go. The
everyone.
rest